I'm Danny and welcome to the July tour of my edible forest garden. This is the first visit to my plot in about 10 days now. I've been working away in Sussex at my retreats that are all centred around skating, wild food, foraging and just generally forging a deeper connection with nature. I don't think I've got time to tell you too much about those in this video because these tours do tend to be quite long, so maybe I'll save that for another time if you're interested. But after a very fruitful few hours foraging in the Peak District this morning, I am feeling rested and happy and really excited to take you on a walk all around my garden to show you what's changed since last month. It's been very stormy lately, but we've actually had a really lovely day today, so I thought that was a really good chance to film this video, so I'm hoping the weather does hold out. It does still seem quite sunny. So let's start at the front of the plot because there's been a little bit of activity over there since I've been gone. So down here in this little pile of rubbish that I've got, this is actually waiting for the council to come and collect it. Ryan's getting a collection and he's letting me put some rubbish in it. I found some carpet, some more carpets that's going. But yeah, down here in between these bags, something's been digging and they've dug quite a big hole either side. So my first thought would have been rats, had I not found all of these little snail shells. So I think it's a little badger foraging for his midnight snacks, which is kind of cute. Right then, so as we walk through the front of my plot, which is actually the front of my second plot, you can see that all of the wild garlic has been cleared, and so have all of the spring flowers that popped up. And it just got a little bit of a hoe, and I've now planted all of my squash in bags just behind here. And that just really utilises the space here because it's a bit of a dead zone with all of these garlic bulbs, but I also don't want to dig those up because it's such a lovely display in the springtime and I use it for so many different things. So this is just a really good way of utilising the space for this. So along here with all of my squash plants, I've got quite a lot of crane's bill and still a fair bit of horsetail as well. I've removed quite a bit of horsetail and harvested that to use for drying. It's all inside my shed drying for medicine, but I've still got quite a bit here in these patches that I think I'm going to clear just to give this squash a little bit more room to sprawl. And I've got quite a few different varieties in here. This is actually a little courgette down here, and then I've got loads of different types of squash that did have labels. I'm not sure if they all still do. So this one is Musc de Provence, but I am losing the pen on a lot of my labels, so I think it's going to be a bit of a lucky dip come autumn. The pond needs a massive clear. This has got really overgrown of duckweed, but the lily, the water lily in here is actually thriving. So I do just need to remove quite a lot of that duckweed to get a little bit more oxygen to the surface of that pond there. But other than that, this little area around here is looking quite pretty. The field maple that I cut down, the stump is really overgrown now. Hang on, let me zoom out. So yeah, you can see that the elder has gotten quite big again and this stump is really overgrown. I'm going to cut this back because there are some flowers planted around here, but you wouldn't know it. So where shall we go? Should we finish off in this plot or go into my first plot? I think actually I'll take you through to the second one here. So these are some of my quite late planted potatoes that I've put in these pots, and they've all shot up now, looking very lush and green. And then interplanted in here are a couple of tomatoes that I've just spied the first little fruits on. Just noticed my pear tree is getting a little bit of fungal spot on it. I need to keep an eye on that. So at the back of my polytunnel, I've harvested already a couple of rows of radish, and I took a fair few lettuce leaves to my retreats last week. But my second sowing of radish are all starting to come up now. I can see a little chewed apple that a squirrel or a rat must have found. The June drop has meant that I've got quite a few apples all on the floor down here. just on the other side here, all of my feverfew now starting to go over. I've harvested so much of this and used it for drying, for teas, and I've made balms and tinctures with it all as well. So it's had a really, really good year, this plant, and it's just getting bigger and better every year. But in these beds here, I've got quite a few potatoes that are all popping up now, and also some climbing beans up these little bamboo wigwams as well. So there's quite a few different varieties of potatoes in here. I forget which ones, but they are coming into flower now. So it'll probably be a few weeks until some of these ones are ready to harvest, which is exciting. I've already harvested quite a few of my early potatoes that we used for the retreats last week. But yeah, these ones won't be too long until they're ready. So these beans down here, I've got some borlotti beans. Actually, I did have some borlotti beans. I don't seem to have borlotti beans any longer, but some of these ones I think are still okay, and they're all starting to climb up these bamboo canes, and they're nearly reaching the top. I've got some borlotti beans on this side, I've got some runner beans, and I've also got some climbing French purple beans as well, which are really, really lovely. I think they're called violet cos or something like that, but I really love a purple French bean, and climbing beans always seem to do a lot better for me than dwarf beans, although it doesn't always seem to work. Got lots and lots and lots of buds on these cosmos plants, and I've got quite a few of them as well. They're still all fairly small and quite spindly, but they've got lots of buds on them now, and they will bush out all throughout August. And just behind that I've got my lilac that I planted last month. It seems to be happy in its new little position, and the hops growing up this little bit of fencing at the back as well, which is nice to see. So I've still got a huge pile of weeds that I've pulled up and bits of hedging as well that I've chopped down. This has started to rot down in this pile now, and I think I'm probably just going to leave it for the time being, because it is doing a really good job of decomposing itself in this big heap. So in my greenhouse, fairly messy in here, as it always is, but we've got some bits growing. Lots of tomatoes in here and some cucumbers. I've had quite a few cucumbers off of these plants as well already. So as we come out of the shed, it is straight up past the beans now to my polytunnel. So in the polytunnel, we've got lots and lots of tomatoes. Just seen one that has fallen down, so that needs staking back up. But all of these are getting quite large now. I haven't got fruits on any of them yet, but lots and lots of little flower buds being thrown out. So I can't imagine it'll be too much longer. Hopefully we'll have a nice sunny rest of the summer so that they can ripen in time. But yeah, there's lots of flower buds on this one over here. Look at the size of the flower buds on these ones. These are going to be huge. I've got loads of varieties of tomatoes in here. Most of them are heritage varieties, and got a few quite unusual ones as well. So I'm looking forward to a nice colourful basket. Just next to the polytunnel I've got a few little pots of flowers. All of the pollinators absolutely love these calendula. And I've got some more cosmos that needs to go in the ground as well. These are just in these little pots. I've been a bit slack planting things out lately. I've got this dahlia as well that needs to go out. And this bed has been harvested from my early potatoes, so I've just popped in a few celery plants in this bed, and I think some chard and maybe some beetroot as well. And then in this bed I've still got a couple of potato plants that I need to harvest, but then I've planted up some turnips and also a couple of squash plants as well. But yes, these beds are looking very bare and straggly, but it won't be too long before these plants are filled out. I've just spied a little raspberry over here. Looks perfect. I think I missed the boat with some of these raspberries because they're a little bit too soft to pick, but I've got a few and I've spied loads and loads of gooseberries, so I think that's going to be my main harvest this weekend, the gooseberries. So just behind my raspberries, or actually my raspberries are kind of interspersed throughout this whole area, but just behind here is my blackcurrant bush. And these are delicious. I harvested most of these for my retreat last week, but yeah, these are absolutely delicious. Some of my favourites. My fig tree that I thought was a goner, look at it. It's absolutely throwing out loads of new growth. I was paranoid it was rotting and rotting down the branch, but it's actually totally fine. It's got loads and loads of new leaves on it, and I can't see any little figs yet, but it's in a really, really big pot. So I'm hoping it's going to be quite happy there. This bed here is very slowly starting to fill out. It's got some cosmos, some chamomile, and a few snapdragons in here as well. And also a little stray tomato plant that I've just seen throw out its first little fruit there. That's very nice. And then we swing round, and my fire pit, which is actually my table. Hello, Mr. Robin. Are you after some worms? Are you a bit wet? You're a little bit wet. I've not seen you in a while, have I? I should get you some worms. Hey. So this little fire pit just generally gets used as a table when I'm not camping down here, and I haven't camped down here for a while, but I have got a couple of months off now before my next lot of retreats, so I am hoping to spend a night or two down here. And then behind the fire pit is my bathtub, and I've got some pots of flowers. Most of these are self-seeded. I've got some calendula, some nasturtium. I've got some of these Melton mulberries and some teasels that are starting to collapse as well, but some huge teasels. And this bath hasn't had a fire up in a couple of months, so I'm going to get that going fairly soon, I think. The evening primrose is all in flower and looking absolutely beautiful. And also down here, the clematis that I planted up this archway has all started climbing now, and it is nearly reaching the top. You can see over into next door's plot. They've done such a good job over there. They've only had it a few months and it's looking great. But I've got this little fence up now for my bathtub just here to give me a bit more privacy. And then the shelter for my bathtub, or the screening rather, I use this really tall fireweed, and look at it, it's all come into bloom now. It's actually starting to get to seed, a lot of it, but it does look beautiful and it does provide a really, really great bit of screening for my bathtub. So when you're at the angle from the top of the plot, from my only kind of visible spot in my allotment, it almost becomes invisible. Through the fireweed we've also got some trees, some fruit trees. I've got a little apple here from one of my youngest fruit trees. I've also got lots of different types of currants. This is where my gooseberry bush is, and I've got some rhubarb as well that is kind of hidden, tucked away in there amongst the bindweed and the fireweed. So I should actually probably move some of that so we get some light. Oh, hello, Mr. Raspberry. But yeah, this is a jungle that I can't really get through. Got some hogweed here. It looks like giant hogweed, but it's not. It is common hogweed. Common hogweed can get to about 7 foot tall, whereas giant hogweed can flower up to like 14 foot, so it is really, really giant. But yeah, this is also where lots of my mature fruit trees are. So I've got a couple of plum trees here, and I've got a big apple up there as well, and a couple of bay trees. So these bay trees are a little bit lower than the mature fruit trees, and they provide a little bit of shade and shelter to my little forest garden area, which is just under here. I grow lots of kind of damp and shade-loving plants like my foxgloves, some meadowsweet, and I've got some oxalis down here as well. But yeah, this is a lovely little area, and this path has all been inoculated with winecap mushroom spawn as well. I did that last year, and I started to get my first couple of flushes in the past couple of months, and you can actually see these here have come up and I've missed them. So I've always been a couple of days late with these flushes of wine caps, but I'm hoping I do catch them at some point. Is there any under here that I've missed? No, but lots and lots and lots of mycelium. So as I zoom out, you can see this other field maple stump that's all starting to grow back, and I really need to cut this down because it's starting to get powdery mildew, and I really don't want this spreading to my other plants. But yeah, this little jungle area is a haven for wildlife, and it has actually got a pond in it down here that again is kind of full of duckweed that needs clearing out, but I do see lots and lots of wildlife coming to visit it, so it is in use. But yeah, this area's got loads of hogweed, fireweed, nettle, dandelion, bramble, and loads of other kind of wild plants that I just let scramble up. In the summer it does kind of look messy, but in the spring it's all kind of tidy. It looks really lovely. It's full of spring flowers. Oh, I've just spied a little winecap mushroom down there. Can you see it? Let's go get it. So I've already been foraging today. Went to the Peak District and I found some chanterelles, some little baby steps, and some amethyst deceivers. So it's really nice to be able to go foraging in my allotment as well. Winecap mushrooms, King Stropharia, also called the garden giant, and they're a lovely, lovely edible mushroom. And they're a saprophyte as well, which means that they help to break down all of this wood chip, all of this organic matter in my soil, and just help to create lovely, lovely compost. So these are a really, really good help around the garden. And no allotment really should be without these. They're really easy to grow, and you can inoculate any of your beds or even your garden paths to create a bit more edible growing space as well. So this is the little wildlife area at the back of the second allotment. So before the sun sets, I really want to show you the rest of the plot. It's quite a huge space, 640 square metres, so it does take me quite a while to walk around it and show you it in any kind of great detail. But this is my little border at the back. This fence here borders my plot and the plot next door, and it's also got my skate ramp just here. It needs a bloody good sweep. It's underneath my hawthorn tree, and there's a little squirrel that just sits up in it, up the top there, and he eats the little bits of hawthorn berries, takes a little nut out, and then he throws a hard casing shell on the floor. And I've just got hundreds of them all along the ramp. I haven't got anything of great significance growing in these borders. It is mainly thistles. I grow the thistles for all of the little birds that come to the plot. It could do with a bit of colour back here, because these thistle flowers are quite little. Got some calendula popping up, some chamomile down here, some nasturtium. I have got some dahlias as well, so actually I think it all just needs a little bit of a cut back so these plants can get a little bit more light. My rose that I recently planted is doing quite well, scrambling up this fence here. So behind my skate ramp we've got my kitchen area that is looking alright. It's all kind of tidy and Freckles climbed all over the roof now and it's looking absolutely amazing. And the hollyhock along here is looking amazing, as is the sea holly as well. The hollyhock's got such a beautiful dark colour, and the sea holly with its bright blue kind of mauvey purple colour makes a lovely contrast. And the teasel is absolutely massive. The bees are absolutely loving this teasel. It's such a beautiful plant. It has loads and loads of little flowers that form, and they kind of flower at different times, so it creates quite a long display for these bees to collect nectar from. And they're very nectar rich, these teasel flowers. My stumper is kind of buried amongst the back there, but it's a lovely little wildlife area. And my tree gourds are looking great, all of the rhubarb's looking lovely. I've harvested so much of that. The chives are looking great, and all of the raspberries as well, hidden through the trees. I've had really great harvest of raspberries this year. So as we come through my archway, on the left hand side I've got a little bed, well actually it's quite a big bed, a big bed of squash and self-seeded calendula as well. Got loads and loads of little tiny seedlings. I use all of these calendula flowers for medicine mostly, and teas. I dry them out and I steep the flowers into alcohol, make tinctures, and into oil to make salves and balms as well. It's a really lovely medicinal plant, calendula. And I've got lots of self-seeded poppy that's all gone to seed now. Again, I'm going to be drying out all of those seed heads. I've also got lots of lemon balm in all of the borders along the bed as well. Most of this is self-seeded. A few of them I planted. But I've got loads of squash in this bed and a big old patch of rhubarb at the back that's looking really lovely. And my pond area, I've got a couple of little froggos in there that I've seen bobbing about, and all of this is just hogweed, and I've got also some crocosmia and some teasel along here as well. But this is kind of just like a little wild area, but the wildlife loves it. And just on the right hand side is my herb spiral, and you can't really see that it's a herb spiral anymore. It's really overgrown, but in a good way. It's full of life, full of herbs. Thyme and oregano, rosemary, mint, lavender, fennel, nettles, wormwood, sage, lemon balm, borage, sorrel, chives. Got some sweet woodruff down here. Some wild strawberries, some stray comfrey, some ground ivy, some marjoram, curry plant, all sorts of herbs down in this tiny little space here. It's a really great way to grow lots of different plants in the same sort of space, all at different levels to make it easy to harvest, each with their own kind of microclimates depending on where on the spiral you plant them. I've had loads and loads of harvests from this. I did a big old basket just before I left for my retreats, and I go into a little bit more detail on the herb spiral in my harvest video. So once I finish editing that, you'll get to learn a little bit more about my lovely little herb spiral that I've got back here. Beautifully vibrant and very lovely contrasting tansy ragwort. And this is an absolute favourite of the cinnabar moth caterpillar, and I've seen loads of those around here. Down here, look at all of these dockseed. I think I'll be harvesting some of this for flower actually. I've got quite a lot of dock on my allotment, so I might make the most of it. Along here are all my brassicas, keeping safe in these cages. Some of them have not been in cages and they've been munched, but the majority of them are looking pretty good. And if I keep going along further, you'll see all of these bigger ones that are starting to head up now, looking good. And some of the smaller ones that I planted fairly recently along here are all doing quite well. And then as I walk down I get to my lettuce beds, and I harvested most of these for my retreats last week. I've got a nice big old head here that I might be taking home soon. This one's looking great. But yeah, majority of these I did harvest last week. Got some fat hen down here. This seed makes lovely kind of like quinoa grains. Really, really delicious. I've got a worm bin over there, and that's kind of overgrown with potatoes, some carrots in there, and all of these raspberry plants as well. And then I come round to my greenhouse, and it's looking fairly neat at the front. My fire pit still hasn't gone. I really want rid of that, but I've got a couple of stray squash that I've just plonked in bags along here, and this is quite a sunny spot for them, so I like to keep them there. The Rebecca, self-seeded Rebecca, has all come back, looking very, very cheery. Look at that, beautiful. This is all self-seeded, but I've got a couple of big plants, another one here that's got hundreds and hundreds of buds on it. So I'm really looking forward to this all coming into flower soon. Along here I've got a huge, huge shrub of lemon balm and some buddleia, and the buddleia really, really needs chopping back because look, you can barely see into the greenhouse and it's blocking out loads of light from my tomatoes. So I'm actually going to chop all of this back fairly soon. Open that up a little bit more. But yeah, I come round. My mum's border is all along here. The strawberry bed that I planted up full of runners earlier this year, so I wasn't expecting a harvest from this because they're all very, very new plants, but they are all growing quite well. And I'm trying to keep on top of the weeding in between the plants to give them a lot of space and nutrients to grow and get big and healthy. But yeah, we're nearly at the end now. We come to these two big beds, and again loads of lemon balm on all of the corners, all self-seeded. I had some kohlrabi down here that I planted just before I left, but I didn't net, and the pigeons, I've had a field day. They've munched all of them, but I think they will bounce back if I just get a little bit of netting over them, so I'm going to do that. My potatoes are all looking good in this bed, probably ready to harvest in a month or so. And my parsnips, look at them, let me zoom out. Yeah, look at all these parsnips. They absolutely collapsed in the storms that we had, the really, really heavy rain and wind that we had probably about a week or two ago. But the seed heads are all forming really nicely, and I'm going to leave these on the plant for another week or so to let them dry out, and then I'm going to be harvesting quite a few of these. And I've got thousands and thousands, so if anybody wants some parsnip seeds, let me know. I'll post you some out. And I've got one last bed just behind here. So this is all my celery that's gone to flower. Broadleaf plantain that's got some absolutely epic seed heads on them. Look at those. These are going to make some great grains. So I'm going to just let these dry a little bit more and then harvest these. But yeah, the last little bed to show you along here has got a couple of squash in it, a couple of courgettes, and quite a few tomatoes all in cages. Now these are doing really, really well out here, probably better than my greenhouse tomatoes, and I think they're just probably getting a little bit more light than the ones in there that are all blocked out by the buddleia. And they're really loving the support from these cages. I just found these cages, but they're really, really great. But yeah, that is how that end of the plot is looking at the end of July. Pretty floral, quite abundant. Throwing out some good produce at the minute. I've had loads of courgettes, loads of beans, loads of cabbages, loads of kale, loads and loads of lettuces, loads of raspberries, no strawberries. But yeah, loads of raspberries, loads of gooseberries, blackcurrant, gustaberries, pink currants. Yeah, it's been a really, really great year. So last little bit to show you along here is just my mum's border, and that's looking really lovely. lots of the flowers are starting to go over, so it needs a really, really good dead head. But then again, lots of them are just starting to come out. So I've got this spirea that's massive now, and all of the flowers are absolutely beautiful. Look at those. And then I've got the globe-head thistle. These look lovely. Look at all of these spherical thistles. It is such a beautiful evening. Look at that sunset. I think I'm going to wrap it up here for today, but I've got quite a few videos on the editing pile, so I'll see you very soon. Bye.